In the year 2014, on a film set, a woman named Gabriel takes direction from her filmmaker. She stands in front of a green screen, playing the heroine in a science fiction movie, where she must act as though she's confronting a monster created through CGI, or visual effects. Gabriel delivers the scene with her best performance, gripping a knife and screaming at the invisible creature she's supposed to fight in the film. The scene suddenly shifts to the past, specifically to 1910 in France. We see Gabrielle entering an elegant concert hall, looking for her husband Georges. Instead, she encounters a handsome, blonde young man named Louis, who is attending to admire the art on display. They strike up a conversation about the meaning of the paintings, and Louis expresses the uncanny feeling that he has known Gabrielle from somewhere, particularly recalling a moment 6 years ago when he saw her leaving an opera in Italy. Gabrielle is startled by this peculiar memory, as it seems unusual for someone to remember a face for so long. When Georges doesn't appear, Gabrielle and Louis continue talking throughout the evening, and it becomes clear that Louis is drawn to her. Gradually, Gabrielle also remembers him and recalls their brief encounter after the opera, where they spoke for a short time. Louis had told her then that she had confessed to him about a lifelong fear, that something terrible would happen to her, a fear she likened to a monster, a word that could hold many meanings. This conversation leaves Gabriel in deep thought. The story then jumps to another time, the year 2044, in a dystopian future ruled by artificial intelligence. In this world, humans are allowed to purify their DNA to become ideal beings, but the trade-off is that they must undergo an invasive procedure that enables them to travel into their past lives via advanced capsules. The complexity lies in the fact that this procedure requires them to relinquish all their emotions and human memories. An AI machine informs Gabriel of two important facts. First, there are rare exceptions where some individuals are immune to this process and do not lose their emotions. Second, if she travels to a specific past life, such as the 20th century, she will be unable to remember people or events from another life, such as the 31st century. After a conversation with the AI overseeing the capsule, Gabriel decides to go ahead with the journey to explore one of her past lives. She returns to France in 1915, to the very life we had glimpsed earlier. There we see her walking through beautiful gardens with Louis, resuming her conversations with him about art. She begins contemplating the idea of a relationship with Louis, feeling increasingly unhappy in her marriage. Gabriel discovers a talent for crafting porcelain dolls, and we watch as she exchanges flirtations with Louis and engages in deep conversations. In one such discussion, Gabriel asserts, "Emotion is the beginning of passion," implying that both love and art often start with a small spark that grows into a blazing fire. Years pass, and we learn that heavy rains flooded parts of France and Italy during that time, forcing Gabrielle and her husband Georges to move to a wealthier area. There, Gabrielle was compelled to become a housewife, and her life changed completely. One night, as she tried to entertain herself by playing the piano, she was startled when pigeons flew into the room after she had left the window open. She quickly resolved the situation and resumed her monotonous life. As the days pass, it becomes increasingly clear that Gabrielle sees Louis as the love of her life. She escapes from her home to meet him in secret rendezvous, drawn to him in a way she cannot deny. One of the driving forces behind Gabriel's decision to undergo the treatment in the future was her quest to uncover the monster or the dark feeling that haunts her in the year 2044, a feeling that continues to affect her in every past life she visits. At Louis's suggestion, Gabriel visits a fortune teller named Elena, hoping to understand this looming sense of dread that weighs heavily on her. After listening to her briefly, Elena suggests that this feeling may be tied to a tragic love story. She asks Gabriel to close her eyes and imagine what she's about to describe. The narrative then takes us to a modern home in the suburbs of Los Angeles, where we see a couple kissing on the couch. As the camera zooms in, it becomes clear that the couple is Gabriel and Louis. This vision leaves Gabriel in deep thought, as it seems Elena knows things about her life that Gabriel never shared. Elena speaks of two symbols that would signify an impending disaster in Gabriel's life: a dove, which had already appeared to her earlier, and a knife. Not long after, Gabriel makes a life-changing decision in the 20th century. She flees her controlling husband, convinced that he intends to kill her. Gabriel wakes up again in 2044 inside the capsule that allows her to travel into her past lives. She is greeted by a woman named Kelly, who has been assigned to care for her. Kelly explains that the AI had pulled Gabriel back to the present because her life was in danger if she remained in any of her past eras, and that the emotional neutralization treatment was close to failing. Gabriel senses something is off. Kelly, who is one of the few who successfully eradicated all of her emotions, seems more like a cold, emotionless robot incapable of any genuine expression. However, Gabriel insists on returning to her life in the 20th century, convinced there is something unfinished that she must resolve there. Back in France, she resumes her life after escaping from her manipulative husband and secures a job at a new doll factory thanks to Luis. Gabriel feels excited about this new beginning, where she can pursue her passion for dolls and explore her love with Luis. But tragedy strikes when an electrical short circuit causes a massive fire in the factory due to the highly flammable materials used in doll production. Worse, Gabriel and Luis find themselves trapped in the room where the fire started. They try to escape quickly, but the only exit is flooded due to a burst water pipe. They feel compelled to swim their way out, and Gabriel starts to panic, convinced that this is the prophecy she feared would come true. Louis dives first into the flooded room, but when he doesn't return after several minutes, Gabriel follows, only to find him lifeless, having drowned in his attempt to escape. Gabriel meets the same tragic fate, drowning shortly after. Since she died in her life in France, she is no longer able to return to that era. Following this catastrophe, Gabriel uses the capsule to travel to 2014, where she lives as an American film star in the very same house that the French fortune teller had shown her in her vision. In this era, Louis is no longer the chivalrous man he was in the 20th century. Instead, he has become a toxic online figure, a kind of YouTuber who spreads misogynistic hate, lamenting how he can't understand why he's still single despite his good looks and wealth. He blames women, accusing them of being materialistic and deserving of death. Meanwhile, Gabrielle focuses on her acting career, supported by her friend Dakota, who, despite her kindness, is a shallow character obsessed with cosmetic surgery. At this point, Luis's behavior continues to spiral out of control as his violent threats online inch closer to becoming reality. Late at night, Luis prowls the streets, looking for a woman to kill, desperate to satiate his growing hatred toward women. Soon, Gabriel, who had just left a nightclub, catches his eye with her beauty. Later that night, Gabriel engages in an online fortune-telling session with Elena, the same fortune teller she knew in her past life in France. Elena cryptically tells her that she will soon encounter the man she loves, someone named Luis Lebens, and warns that Gabriel is in imminent danger. Gabriel is left deeply confused, not knowing what the fortune teller is referring to. The next morning, an earthquake strikes, causing Gabriel to flee from her home. Outside, she unexpectedly runs into Luis, who has been wandering the area since the night at the nightclub, having become obsessed with her and planning to make her his first victim. Despite Luis's strange behavior, Gabriel treats him kindly and invites him into her home for something to drink. Luis accepts the invitation, and the two begin to talk. As time passes, Gabriel starts to feel an inexplicable attraction toward him, as if an unseen force is telling her she knows him from somewhere. Gabriel moves toward him for a kiss, and Luis reciprocates. Quickly, they begin to undress, and it seems that the moment aligns with the vision Elena had shown Gabriel in France during the 20th century. However, it soon becomes clear that this scene is nothing but a sexual fantasy playing out in Gabriel's mind. She had imagined Luis as the man she loves, as foretold by the fortune teller. In reality, Luis is still outside Gabriel's home, waiting for nightfall to break in and murder her. Meanwhile, Gabrielle continues her daily life, heading to work on the set of a new action horror film. We see her once again standing in front of a green screen, just as we saw at the beginning of the movie. Later, when Gabriel returns home, she starts researching Luis Lewanski online and discovers his disturbing social media accounts. That's when the shocking truth dawns on her. Luis is the same man she had imagined in her sexual fantasy. Suddenly, a dove enters her home, one of the prophetic symbols that Elena had mentioned in France. Gabrielle is filled with terror, though she doesn't fully understand why. In a state of panic, she rushes to the kitchen and grabs a knife, the second symbol foretold by Alina, preparing herself for whatever might happen next. In a moment of desperation, Gabriel rushes to hide in one of the rooms, sensing someone's presence. It's Luis, who has broken into the house, ready to kill her with a gun in his hand. She recognizes him from the video she had just watched. Despite her intense fear, she decides to take a bold step and opens the door, trying to calm him down with her words. In her imagination, she succeeds in getting him to lower his weapon, and they share a kiss, but tragically, it was just another of Gabriel's fantasies. In reality, the moment she opened the door, Luis shot her immediately, killing her. He then threw her body into the pool. In the year 2044, Gabriel wakes up in deep despair, having been forced to return to the present after her death in that past life. The AI reaffirms its pessimistic view that life would be better without emotions, as they help avoid disappointment, betrayal, and dissatisfaction. Gabriel resumes her life with Kelly, resigned to the idea of becoming her partner to fill the void Luis left in her life. She hopes that the procedure she underwent has succeeded in erasing her emotions and memories. But one day while visiting a bar, she comes face to face with Luis once again. She smiles instantly, recognizing him, which means she is one of the few humans for whom the procedure failed to erase feelings and memories from their past lives. However, sadness quickly overwhelms her, as Luis does not recognize her or feel anything for her. He agrees to dance with her at the bar only out of politeness. In that moment, Gabriel can only cry bitterly, as the love of her life, whose soul had intertwined with hers across many lifetimes, is lost to her forever. Even though he killed her in a past life, she still loves him, but she can no longer return to those eras, and she can't love Luis in the present because he is emotionless and incapable of returning her love. In the end, all that remains for Gabriel are her devastating emotions, leading her to realize that the monster she had been running from all her life was none other than the tragic feeling of being human. While love can be a magical experience, losing that love is the worst nightmare of all. And thus this sorrowful story comes to an end.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.